Hey, welcome back to the Oz Shift podcast. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Trucks, and we had the amazing opportunity today of talking to a man named Case Kenny. Now, Case has gone through some interesting things in life. He has had some great success in the corporate world, but found that he wasn't fulfilled in doing what he was doing, and he had this heart pull to go do something new, which was in the realm of what's called mindfulness. And so today we uncovered some cool things that are tied to the podcast that he has he started a while, 4 years ago, that's now with SiriusXM. At the same time, there's great questions that we looked at in terms of what led him to writing the journals and creating the journals he has, the music collaborations with guys like Martin Garrix, which are one of the top DJs in the world. But he's got a wealth of knowledge. The questions about asking, "Am I wrong?" And you'll understand what that question means when you listen to the episode. Also, look into that everything that you want on the other side of something specific he talks about, as well as hiding versus finding. We uncover some of these cool things in a conversation that really allow you to get some fulfillment in terms of life. And I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. And then also, as always, there's these things that I look at of how we function. Like, you're about to listen to a podcast that's going to make your brain work, and it should. Take notes, pay attention, lean in. One of the things that I love that gives my brain the focus, like right this moment, to talk to you, to be clear of mine, is something called Magic Mind. If you go to magicmind.co/shift or use OSShift as the code, you get a discount. And it's an amazing little elixir, we'll call it, that I happened across on my own months ago, almost a year ago now. And it's been a humongous help for my brain. I take it every single day. I'm not even joking. It's something that I've loved as a product, and I recommend you go check it out, because I think we all sometimes need to realize that our life is filled with activity, and our brain's always on and always moving and always pumping, but we don't always take care of the brain so we can take care of getting things done so we can have an amazing life. It's that simple thing where we are who we are because of the brain. So take care of this. Have an amazing mind so you can have an amazing life. So go make sure you check out magicmind.co/shift. And outside of that, let's get into the episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We have our guest today, which you know a little bit about, Mr. Case Kenny. Case, how you doing, man?
I'm amazing. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. I appreciate it. Now, those of you guys who are listening to this right now, you have no idea. This is like our fourth take within 30 seconds. I have no idea how we had so much fun figuring out, but that tells me there's going to be something cool coming out of it, because, every once in a while I get the bad reps out of the way. So they're all gone for you folks. But we're going to start this podcast off with the same question I ask everybody. So, Case, I'm walking around Chicago, Chi-Town, and I sit down at a cool coffee shop next to the river, and I look at this guy next to me. It's just you. I don't know you, but you look like a cool guy, and for some reason, you decide to turn and start talking to me. Why should I listen to you?
Oh, man. Such a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think for me, I've always lived by a prove it mentality. So like anything that I would talk with you about, any advice that I would give, anything that I would tell you, I think it would be backed up by my story, which I love to share, which, I take pride in, being the person I am, not being anyone other than who I am on the internet, on the podcast, in my writing, everything like that. So, I mean, for me, it's just a determination to be the person I am, to not be anyone other than that person. So I think that's a characteristic that's few and far between nowadays, where everyone is, trying to kind of stretch just a little bit. And of course, it's great to be aspirational, but for me, it's like I just really am adamant about living by the things that I say and do and create and preach. So for me, maybe that would give you a reason to listen to whatever I'm selling you.
I like it, man. That's a good one. And to be honest, I think that's the truth. I think there's a world we live in where we're trying to find a way to stay within like the know, or to be able to not have this comparative problem of like, well, I don't look or fit like that person, but I want to be somebody. So like I got to find a way to be the somebody, even though it's not my somebody, and that's a journey though. Cause I'm going to assume you didn't land on that one day. Like it wasn't the first thought out of your head or your world. Did you find yourself going through a journey to, we'll call it, get rid of the stuff you were doing to settle into who you are and showing that confidently?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I'm 34. I feel like I have my entire life ahead of me, but I also feel like I've got a
Yeah.
good decade of life experience as well. So like right in the meat of the curve, I feel good about how old I am, and I celebrate getting older.
Mhm.
But for me, I worked in corporate America for the past decade, and doing things and that were rewarding. I led a sales team in Chicago. That was great. I
Mhm.
also found myself in quite a few relationships in my 20s. But ultimately, there just came a
Mhm.
point where I was like, what if I'm wrong? That was kind of the question that I asked myself. Like, am I wrong? What if I'm wrong about the career I'm doing? What if I'm wrong about the people I'm dating? What if I'm wrong about the goals I have? Like, very existential questions. And there came a point where I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know the answer to that question. And that really fired me up because I'm pretty type A. And I was like, I need to find out that
Yeah.
answer. So my journey from there was asking myself questions as often as possible to come up with answers that were true to me. I didn't realize that what I was setting out to do was practicing mindfulness, which is literally what I'm describing now. So I started this
Yeah.
podcast back in 2018, and kind of the rest is history from there. But it was basically through, just
Yeah.
at the time, I remember very distinctly at the time, I had just gone through a breakup with a woman that I lived together. We lived together, so it was a long term relationship. So at the
Mhm.
same time,
Yeah.
I was traveling a lot for work, and I just remember those two timelines coincided. And I was like, man, I was like, I would hate to look back one day and regret the decisions I was making and the timelines I had set for myself and the goals I had set for myself and the pressure I put on myself, and to be like, man, I shouldn't have done that. So I got fired up. I was like, I need to answer those questions and I need to figure it out. And through that process, everything has changed, both career-wise, personal-wise, just everything. But that
Yeah.
was kind of my like transformation.
I like it, man. And that's kind of like you're like the one in a million, right? Because I'm gonna venture out and say there are probably a lot of people who are living the same existence that you were currently, who have had the same thought. Like this isn't comfortable, or at least their soul has said something's off, but they keep shushing it, ignoring it. What was the thing that gave you like I guess the drive to go down the rabbit hole that many people would never go down?
Honestly, it felt good to do something different, because I think what I was just stuck in this turnstile of the key to being happy, fulfilled, successful, whatever these things are that we're after. I was always
Mhm.
under the assumption that to get those things, life is about more and better. I had to work harder to get better. I had to work harder to create more, better, larger outcomes in life. And certainly, I'm
Yeah.
very ingrained in that sense as an entrepreneur and this and that. But what was so freeing, and what, to answer your question, what really pushed me down that rabbit hole was maybe the answer to my life was different or simpler or less. And I was like, man, that is just a
Yeah.
complete 180 from how I've been taught to think, from what sales
Yeah.
had taught me, from what relationships had taught me. And it was just very freeing. I was like, this is just so different from how I've thought in the past. And maybe that's something to
Yeah.
continue to explore. And then, of course, through doing it, I was like, this is really helpful. Like, this is therapeutic. This is my therapy. So,
Yeah.
it was just giving myself the catalyst to do it. And then mindfulness is a muscle. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. Just as speaking, as
Yeah.
sports, as anything. And that was just like
Mhm.
amazing. I was like, this is a skill that I picked up in my late 20s. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So just kept pulling on that thread.
Yeah. It's dope. I mean, and I like that because I'm the same way. Like, mindfulness is a big piece of my entire existence. If I don't have control, that bad boy doesn't work. But my head goes to, well, how did you not get stumbled up? And maybe you didn't, and maybe you did. Who knows about that window of time that goes, I want to pursue this thing, but in pursuance of this, I must release this or remove myself, or this is no longer part of who I am or my world. Because to jump into something new means you have to leave some place of comfort. What was that place of comfort? And did you have those areas where like you had a little apprehension to lose those things?
I mean, certainly so, because I had built an entire character and brand around being successful in sales. Like, I started at this company as
Yeah.
an account executive, worked my way up all the way up to regional vice president, like led a team, did very well for myself,
Wow.
did very well financially. It was very, it was, uh, it was great. It was amazing. And it's very easy
Mm.
to delude ourselves with money as like, well, I'm making good money, so I don't need to worry about these little things like happiness or
True.
fulfillment. But like, money is
Yeah.
my happiness. Money's like, we do this so naturally, of course. And it was very easy for me to continue to do that. But to answer your question, what I had to let go of was an identity around that thing. But what I really
Hmm.
realized, I was like, okay, maybe Case Kenny, existential inner life Case Kenny, I need to start over. That sounds pretty great. But then, this the term of start over, we're very averse to it, because when we think about starting over or reinventing ourselves, a lot of the time we think
Hmm.
about, I have messed up so bad that I need to start from zero. I need to throw everything away
Yeah.
and start new. And what I've realized is, in a sense, maybe, but you're never starting from zero. You're never, ever, ever starting from zero. You're bringing all these things with you.
So
And I
true.
learned a ton about myself in sales. I learned a ton about myself in my 20s through, quote, failed relationships. And I was bringing all that with me. And that gave me a little bit wind
Yeah.
in my sails. It's like, I'm not really starting from zero. I didn't mess up so bad that I need to, start here. It's like, I'm choosing a new fork in a road, and I'm bringing all these things with me. And that just kind of gave me some
Mhm.
confidence, some momentum. And it just felt, I mean, honestly, the answer is it just felt really good. Some things just
Yeah.
click in your inner life, and you just know it, and you're
Yeah.
drawn to it, and that's what this
Yeah.
whole thing that I do in writing and podcasting and music is all about to me.
I like it, man, because it does it. It settles into like I've heard you kind of fall back to that a couple times now. It's like the feeling, the feeling, the feeling. It's crazy because I guarantee other people feel the same feeling but don't take the same step. Did you have anybody like let's see, like support systems that look at you and went, "Hey, man, Case, you're crazy, bro. You're gonna leave that job and leave that money and all." Did anybody kind of poke at you that way? And if they did, how did you handle that?
Yes, certainly so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I working in sales, like people are like, "Case, what are you doing, man?" Or like, you're leading a sales team, making a lot of money at a big company, and you're going on, posting quotes about love on the internet. Like people clowned on me for sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Even I
Yeah,
remember
man.
my parents one day, and my parents, I love them, they love me to the moon and back. We do anything for each other, of course. But I remember a comment that my
Yeah.
mom made. She was like, "You're gonna throw that all away." And she didn't mean it like that, but
Mm.
just that wording, just like really, oh man, throw it all away. So of course, yeah, I had
Yeah.
massive doubts from time to time, but just stay very rooted in the fact that in my life, I've always proven that anything worth having is on the other side of fear, failure, rejection, some type of friction. It's always been true, and in this case,
Mhm.
I had finally found this thing that could be financially freeing, but most importantly, it was personally freeing, and it allowed me, as I say, to like not be in a hiding place, but to be in a finding place where I could actually find and exhibit myself. So, yeah, I mean, it's still like even to this day, I still think it's really funny that I do what I do for a living. Like I never thought
Yeah.
this is what I would do. I joke that I share my feelings for a living. People call me a dating expert, and these things that I think are not deserved.
Yeah.
So it's still I from time to time I still am like imposter syndrome, all the things that I think everyone
Mhm.
struggles with. So it's not a linear line. I'm
Yeah.
I'm constantly up and down for sure.
Yeah, I get that. I'm in the same boat. Like I quite literally make a living from thoughts that I spend time in and share. It's the same when I go on stage or doing this podcast. So I 100% get it. Right? It's the thing you venture out. I was a gym owner and former NFL player. They're like, what do you know? What are you going to share? Like, how could you? I was like, I
Yes.
don't know, but I'm gonna try it, man. And
Yeah.
so you venture out. So we've been kind of I want to get through a thread of who you are and what you've done before we jump into the things that you currently do, really, and then like the aspect of mindfulness, because I hear all those things and go, okay, great. Well, he has this amazing career. He has to venture out. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. There's people that are in his life that love him, but that are kind of giving him the opposite, feeling, and that has to lean into something that holds you back up. And what I hear is this concept of mindfulness. Do you mind, in your own words, expressing what mindfulness is? And how you used it to be able to get to the position of even just starting before getting to the point you're at now.
Yeah, very passionate about the topic of mindfulness because again, I look at my 20s, I would hear the word mindfulness and I would think that's not for me. I don't even know what that is. Like
Hmm.
even in general, I was always very cynical towards the self-development industry. Like who is someone else to tell me what to do or what's right for me? And then I would hear words like mindfulness and I'd be like that's not for me. That's for people who, go on silent retreats and have crystals in their house. Like I was very kind of against that. But what I came to realize, maybe through growth or just maturity, that mindfulness is the most simple, practical thing you could do in life. When you break it down, all mindfulness is self-awareness. Of course, it's in the word to be aware. But what I have found that all mindfulness is radical self-honesty in the form of why, W-H-Y. That's all it is. That's how I've defined it for myself. When I sit down and I talk about mindfulness, all it is the application of asking yourself why and challenging yourself to answer it the best you can. Not with a permanent blueprint to your life, but with an honest answer in the moment. Case, why do I feel drawn to writing? Why do I feel drawn to sharing my feelings? Why do I feel drawn to music? Or why do I feel anxious in
Hmm.
this moment? Why do I have this goal? I really do think that anything in life can always be broken down, of course. It might not give you the answer you want, but that is mindfulness. And the more you practice
Hmm.
why, the better you get at it. And I always say that if you practice why, you practice mindfulness, it gives you two things in life that I think if you're constantly in the pursuit of these things, you're going to have very few things to regret. And those two things are closure and clarity. Closure and clarity. It's like when you practice why, you get a sense of closure from
Hmm.
your past. Maybe not closure, but more like peaceful acceptance. And in the present, you
Hmm.
get clarity. You can say yes or no in this moment. Maybe tomorrow it'll
Yeah.
be different, but you have an intention. And I think if you have an
Hmm.
intention and you're pursuing giving yourself closure and you're pursuing clarity in the present of what you're doing and why you're doing it, I think life's going to really open itself up to you, as opposed to how a lot of people live, which is, I call it living in the gray, which is doing what's expected of you, doing what you've always done, borrowing other people's timelines, borrowing other people's goals, all these kinds of things. Whereas I think
Yeah.
mindfulness just beats through that very clearly. But it requires a lot of effort and it requires a lot of vulnerability. But I think it's the most rewarding, practical thing you could do in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, I can. As soon as you're talking through it, I'm going like, I know like probably 10. I can probably list genuinely 10 different areas of my life where this has been a huge practice. And one that stands out for some reason immediately is like I met my father at 20 years old, and then at a time I had no idea existed. Right, or he told me he had no idea I existed. Went through this journey of 9 years before he passed away. Finally shared, look, I did know you existed all your life. And it's interesting because you say clarity is a big piece, at the same time closure, right? So for me, it's like I kind of had that feeling, but the closure was powerful to me. But at the same time, I had clarity on the perspective of how it must have felt for a man to carry that his entire life, like to know, or my entire life, right? To know, but not so. And then for me to find him, how did he navigate? So I had like a compassion, but it allowed me to have a perspective that gave like peace and not anger and not disdain. So I
Mm.
didn't have to carry that inside, and it had me show up in life a different way completely. And some people, here's the crazy thing. I think some of the realizations when people have mindfulness practices and they have these things, people think you're crazy because they're like, how can you just forgive someone like that? How can you just do that? Someone stole from you. How can you let somebody steal from you like that? And it's like, you can step back and go, well, they did not to hurt me, but because they needed something. They just didn't know how to ask for it. Right. So little nuances. But does that kind of make sense what I'm saying there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the most immediate side effect of mindfulness is empathy. I mean, that's what you're describing there in a sense. It's compassionate empathy, both for yourself, to be able to see yourself outside of yourself, but then also, of course, to approach other people in the same way. I mean, the biggest breakthrough I've ever had with mindfulness when it comes to interpersonal relationships, platonic, romantic, business, whatever it is the concept
Mm-hmm.
of we're all victims of victims, but not in like a disparaging way. There's been a lot to be
Yeah.
said about conditioning and upbringing and things like that, but just in the sense that like it's really taught me that when it comes to people in life who disappoint you, betray you, frustrate you, everyone is acting out of their own intention. And very infrequently are
Mm-hmm.
people, doing evil things purposely. They're doing what they think they should be doing. They're doing what they were taught to do. They're
Yeah.
doing what they
Mm-hmm.
think society wants them to do. And then somehow you end up in the crosshairs and get hurt. I don't know. It just takes a lot of the weight off me to like hate someone or want to hurt someone or want to
Yeah.
get revenge on someone, where I
Mm-hmm.
could just realize, hey, through the practice of mindfulness, that person is the same as me. They're struggling through their thing. They found some piece of clarity in their life that they think is right and that ended up hurting me.
Yeah.
So be it. I don't know. It's obviously much more nuanced than that, but like I just find a lot of
You get it.
powerful empathy through that, what you described.
I agree, man. I 100% agree. And that the thing is where someone will hear that and they'll go, I don't know, these guys are talking about, it's crazy. You can't just let somebody off the
Yeah.
hook. And it's like, it's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting you live your life in a sense of peace. And they may still have to battle it. I tell my kids, I tell them, hey, sometimes the greatest punishment you can give somebody is to let them continue to live their life the way they are. Like there's some people just do
Yeah.
things and they do, and you get mad and it's like, hey, but you got to realize what kind of place that person must be in to do that. And if you can't reach them, they're going to have a life that is far more riddled with problems than you would have, but you'll engage in that and they'll bring you to their problems. So don't just, hey, let it go, press on. Life will continue
Yeah.
on.
That's great advice. I think that's great. I mean, it's just like I talk very practically about things in life. Like we're all afraid to do things because we're afraid what people will judge us for. Like even as starting a podcast or
Hmm.
creating art or music, like we're always afraid that people will judge us. And I always come back to the fact that if someone judges you respectfully, but they're a loser. They're like anyone who judges someone who is willing to do something awkward, embarrassing for the first time, to be a beginner, as long as it's coming from a genuine place and they judge you, like I feel sorry for them. Like obviously our inclination is
Yeah.
to like judge ourselves and be like, oh, me this, me that. But for me, I've just flipped it and be like, if someone clowns on me for being a dude who shares his feelings on the internet, I genuinely, I'm not saying this as a defense mechanism, I genuinely feel sorry for them. Like, what in their life has led them to a point to judge someone else who's doing something they're passionate about? So I think there is
Yeah.
something it's like a reverse Uno card, right? Someone clowns
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
you, you put that card down, and you're like, obviously you don't have to say these things, but in your heart, you let them go because you feel sorry for them, and you let them live their life
Yeah.
where they're judging other people. And I don't know, things like that have always been helpful for me, just
No,
to
I
like
get it,
get
man.
out of
It's
my
a
head and
genuine
just
thing.
reverse it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to, because if not, you carry it. There's a story I've said in the past where I heard it, and it was like something like Gandhi back in the day. He was out with his disciples or followers, whatever you want to call it, and somebody walks up to him and goes, "Hey, I hate you. You're a horrible person." He goes, "Thank you." He goes, "No, I don't think you get it. I hate you. You should, you're crazy. There's something wrong." Thank you. And he keeps on going. And Gandhi, all he keeps saying is, "Thank you." The guy gets frustrated, and he walks off. And a person comes up and goes, "How can you let this man talk to you in this manner?" And he goes, "Well, if somebody comes to give you a present and you don't accept it, they then have to walk off with it."
That's great.
Right?
Oh,
I was
that's
like,
good.
"Ooh, it's a good one."
Man,
So that's what I
let's
do, man.
sit with
People
that.
do
Yeah,
stuff, and I
heck
go,
yeah.
"Hey, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do
Yeah,
my thing."
that's
Now, you
good.
did allude
Yeah.
to the podcast. I know you did start the podcast that you have. It's the new mindset. Who dis? I like that. So tell me about the podcast, how it came to be, because you alluded to that. And I need to do something cool also with the podcast and music and mindfulness. I want to dive into, but share with me the podcast. We'll call it the beginnings of it all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it was what I just described when I was kind of at that crossroads: relationship, job. Am I going to regret this? What am I doing? I wanted a means to do that, and I had been writing online in some variety for a couple of years, but I wanted to do something a bit more vulnerable. There's something more vulnerable than writing, which I think is spoken word.
Hmm.
There's more emotion to it, of course. So I was like, I'm going to do that,
Yeah.
and that's literally how I started the podcast. So like my whole journey is kind of meta in that I started the podcast as a means to help myself, and then it changed my life,
Mm.
and then it gave me some authority because practicing this and helping other people eventually does that very thing. But it's all like
Yeah.
the podcast has always been for me. Like it was always my form of therapy. And then started releasing those episodes and they started to do well. And I was like, wow, it's helping other people. This is pretty interesting. And, I've done 450 episodes and I've branched into music now. And, it's just become this thing where it just gets more and more rewarding the more I practice this. But yeah, I mean, on the music side too, it's like I'm very passionate about fusing together mindfulness with different mediums. So obviously on the podcast, that's spoken word, and books
Hmm.
and writing, that's the written word. I run a business where I create different journals and sell those. That's journaling and mindfulness. I have a candle line that's scent and mindfulness. Music and mindfulness, I think, is the
Hmm.
most powerful form of mindfulness in the world. There's something, and there's obviously a lot of science to back it, but there's something about the right kind of
Yeah.
music that puts you in a flow
Hmm.
state with repetition and just the construction of the music. And I've always been drawn to house music and dance music. And I started doing these things that I called dance music guided meditations, where I would DJ and put together these mixes. And those started to get pretty big that I started to reach out to different producers and DJs. And like now I've done these collabs with Martin Garrix and, all these DJs where we come together and they'll play
Yeah.
the music and I'll come over in the interludes and do some mindfulness. And it just
Hmm.
becomes this very energetic thing that's in contrast. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people sometimes think about mindfulness or journaling or these things and they're like, that's low energy. You do that when you're sad. You do that when you're overwhelmed. My whole thing is mindfulness is a
Yeah.
celebration. That's why I like doing with house music. It's a celebration. Stand up, be happy, celebrate what you know instead of what you don't know. This type of contrast. So like now that more of the music is kind of just enabling me to really just spread my love for mindfulness in a different, dare I say, cool way. But yeah, I love it. Just the ability to do these things in different forms and varieties is certainly a gift.
Yeah, I like it. It's different mediums because everybody has to consume things in a way that best hits them, right? There's certain people, some love audio, some may love, my wife loves candles. Maybe she'd love these candles. Like the
Yeah.
journaling aspect's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
But I always like to go back to the birthing of it all because there's a lot that goes in to get to the point you're at now. There's no way you decide like I'm gonna do this and launch this and do this, like to build up to the point like Martin Garrix is one of the top DJs in the world, right? And I know this. I don't know why I know this. I have a bunch of random information in my head. I just happen to know that I've listened to a lot of his songs and his music, even though it's not. I don't go to. I don't even like going to loud restaurants, bro. I'm like an old dude in that sense. But I know his music, right?
Yeah.
so so as you kind of built in, you got the podcast, which is your own kind of practice of doing that. When did you decide to kind of like what was it the catalyst to these next branches? Was it just something that you felt this is the next step? Did people request something? Was it just sheer creativity and curiosity? Because that's the entrepreneurial thing I want to kind of poke into now is A lot of people listen to this episode, these podcasts that are like that, and they go, man, this is cool. He's doing all cool stuff. I couldn't do that, though. That's not what I did. How did you get to the point of taking these next steps?
It's such a great question. I remember it pretty vividly. I remember so I was employed at this company for a while I started the podcast. I did the classic side hustle
Mm-hmm.
thing. And, luckily
Yeah.
I've networked pretty well over the years, and I know some people who are great examples to look to. And I remember having a call one day with this guy. He's the founder of a very large media company. And he was like, so what are you going to do? I was like, well, I don't know. I was thinking about, building something for my audience, building a product that they need instead of going out and doing sponsors and trying to leave the corporate world that way. He's like, dope. I was like, I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about maybe a journal, because I think, journaling is one of those things that obviously brings mindfulness to life. And, but I was like, I don't want to do that. Everyone has a journal. And I remember I forget exactly what he said, but he was like, well, just because everyone has created a journal doesn't mean you can't create a new one, a different one. Because I kept comparing myself to
Yeah.
people like, oh, he's got a journal, but
Yeah.
why would I be any different from him? Or there's a million different journals. And I remember he said that, and I was like, screw it. Who am I to take myself out of the game before I'm even in the game? So I ended up
Mm-hmm.
creating this journal, and just being like, all right, well, maybe people will like this. And then it was a timing thing. I released it in January of 2020, and then obviously
Mm-hmm.
COVID
Yeah,
came
big time.
shortly after, and there just became this huge demand for mental health wellness products. And I went from
Yeah.
making no money to the journals grossing mid seven figures in 18 months, and a lot went into that. Of
Mhm.
course, a lot of hard work in the years prior, and then the
Yeah.
timing, and then the creation of it. Of course, I can't owe it all to luck, but that was a moment that
Mhm.
just taught me, one, stop assuming things. Like, just because you want to create
Yeah.
something that already exists is such a defeatist mentality. I was like mad at myself for operating under that for so long. And then two, yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I just was like, okay, I'm going to throw everything I have into this. I'm going to stop hiding. I'm going to stop saying, oh, I don't really care about this. Because when I was at work, I was Mr. Sales Guy, and people would bring up these things, and I would be like, no, that's just something silly I do on the side. And I switched it. I was like, no, that's my thing. I want to be a writer. I want to be a podcaster. I want to spread my love for mindfulness. And I stopped hiding behind, oh, hobby this, hobby that. And it changed a lot. I went from 20,000 followers on Instagram to like 300 or something in a very short period of time. And
Yeah.
I think just like starting to see the results really convinced me to go all in, and then eventually quit my job and continue to do these things. But learned a lot
I
along the
like
way
it, man.
on entrepreneuring
Yeah.
as well. So I could do
You
I
all
could
have
do
to.
hours on that. But it was kind of just like
Yeah.
getting out of this operating system that I'd been in, namely thinking that I
Yeah.
couldn't be someone who was successful, and everything
Mm.
changed.
That's one of the odd shift moments, man. I'm always trying to find like what are the
Yes.
powerful odd shift moments in somebody's
Yes.
story. Like this whole thing of this whole podcast for me, and that's I'm hearing the one right because I think that is the conversation. I've already done this, and somebody else already done this, or I've already seen this person. It's crazy because if you think about it, I am in this industry of speaking, talking. Every single day, I find somebody new. Every day, like it's
It's
every
awesome.
day, and I'm like, there's such a humongous abundant space. And even then, I don't look at them and go, oh man, I go, oh cool. That means they're bringing the conversation for us. When I enter, the people who are supposed to find me, they'll find me. Like it actually was a good thing for the world
Huh.
to somewhat enter the online world the way it did because they start seeing a world they didn't know existed. And I'm one of the guys in the world,
Yeah.
but that's because I decided to step into it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I can give you two more examples. And again, these aren't to make me sound cool. This is just the reality of what happens when you step into a space that you previously
Mhm.
thought you didn't belong in. And truly, like most recently in my
Yeah.
life, like the podcast, I always like, well, I'm an independent podcaster. I'm not this, I'm not that. I don't have a billion followers, this, that. Like, who am I? I recently signed with
Mhm.
SiriusXM on the podcast, one of like the biggest radio networks in the
Great
world,
for
and
me.
like it was like
Yeah.
such a validating thing for little independent podcaster Case to be in the leagues of Pod Save America and Crime Junkie and Conan O'Brien, all these folks. I was like, that's pretty
Mhm.
insane. And then I remember
Yeah.
thinking back when I was like thinking about products, I was like, man, like how do you ever get a product in Target? How do you get into, a big box
Mhm.
retailer? Never, 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 never.
Yeah.
I have a product
Mhm.
now that's in Target and every Walmart. You walk in, it's on an end cap. I'm like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like these things that happen. And of
Beautiful.
course, I owe it to effort and things like that. But luck, randomness, consistency. Like I've done
Mhm.
450 episodes over four and a
Yeah.
half years. I've never missed a single episode. But along the way, I didn't
Mhm.
have an end goal in mind. I was just so attached to why I was doing these things but like everything
Yeah.
shifts once you decide to redefine what's possible for yourself. Now I'm at a stage where like, well, if I could do this with SiriusXM, what is next? Or product this or product
What
that. It
else?
just, you have to find a way to get to that next level so you can reinvent what the next
Mhm.
level is. And for me, initially, it was
Yeah.
being like, I am worthy of something that's beyond this. And just because other people are also worthy of it, that doesn't mean I'm not worthy of it. And it was a
Mhm.
very limiting mind space, headspace that I was in for a long time. And I think shifting out
Mhm.
of that has just been instrumental and, so fulfilling, of course.
I'd agree, man. I'd agree, man. My whole work's an identity. That's kind of the realm that I spend. I have a book on it called Identity Shit. So that's kind of my thing. And I've always realized that there's the same journey you're talking about. That's the gold is hidden in the small, like in betweens of what you just said. Like you said, a lot of hard work, and we just throw it out there. And I don't think people grasp sometimes. But there is a level at which you will do work that is taxing. It taxes almost your soul. There's a benefit if the work you're doing is joy, because then it's like you are almost addictively drawn to it somewhat. But there's still going to be work. And what happens is, what's that quote? The quote goes, and it's tied to money, but I flip it out with achievement. He says, the first million is difficult. The next one is inevitable. So if you say, well, the first achievement is difficult, the next one's inevitable, it's because of the person you become while you're achieving, right? It's not just the achievement. It's like, like you said, I can focus on this, do this. I'm sure if someone was if you, when you like say episode 1 case, jumped into episode, what's it called, I don't know, whatever, 450 now, right? That guy would freak out, right? On day one,
Yeah.
you'd freak out. But what you do now, oh, I got this is like a day walk in the park, never miss an episode.
Yeah.
There's the beauty, I think, that people don't grasp.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we're so remiss to like not give ourselves credit for the steps that we take every day along the journey. I mean, like, there's something to be said about effort, of course. There's something to be said about consistent effort combined with stubbornness of vision. But it can take a long time to figure out what
Yeah.
that thing is. Like I tried a lot of different things over the time before I got into the podcast. I'm looking at these
Hmm.
paintings that I used to make, and I sold one. I literally sold one, and I thought that was going to be the thing, and I gave up on that.
Yeah.
But I didn't
Yeah.
give up on this because it really, really struck a chord with me. And yeah, I mean, I think to your point, you give yourself momentum, and what follows from that is inevitable, as long as it's followed by that
Mhm.
action and that alignment of vision. And those are cliches, but I mean, it's true. I used to like hate cliches. I was like, well, a cliche is a cliche, but they're all
Yeah.
true. We just need to find ways to
True,
like show
man.
that it's
They are
practical in
true.
our life.
Yeah. I tell my kids the same thing. I'm like, yeah, you hear me say it? I got a kid in college. He's 17. He's off in college freshman year. And we're having conversations. And I'm like, see why I told you that like for 5 years, bro. Get it? Yeah, I get it now, Dad. And it's the same cliche stuff, but it's cliche because it's true. Now, I know there's also dynamic that most people aren't noticing, right? Because you found your thing. Like I have my thing. And when you have your thing, it goes from the work being hard to do to hard not to do. I can't go to sleep without getting it done. Like my soul is drawn to it, right?
Yeah.
And so in that journey to go to that, you see a lot. We are in a world of consistent feedback and awareness. And we kind of alluded to it earlier in a previous conversation before we recorded about social media and what you see and what it kind of almost creates for your reality. Because for a lot of people, unfortunately, the reality is I go on the internet to bide my time to see it's stuff that's all this cool entertainment and or stuff that I'll never have, and I feel dark, so I go eat stuff, and I feel crappy, so I go tuck away, and I got to go to work to do a job I have to survive and to pay the bill, and life just is this draw when it could be something different. What are your thoughts when you look at the world of like social media in this moment in time?
Oh, yeah. It's such a passion point for mine. I'll keep it short, but I think, you know, I don't like advice that's like
Don't keep it short.
social media, like, I, I don't like advice that's like social media is not real. Everyone's lying. That sounds so negative to me. But what I have realized is that
Yeah, it does.
we need to, we need to realize the commonality of the human experience. And the most practical way I could describe it is as follows. I actually just released an episode on this. The other day on Instagram, I posted a question. I said, what is one thing that's missing from your life? And, I've got 400 some thousand followers, so I got a ton of answers. And I looked
Yeah.
at all the answers, and they were big time life things: fulfillment, love, financial security,
Wow.
depth, optimism, big time things. But I didn't want to
Yeah.
just like get the answers. I wanted to see who submitted the answers, and people didn't realize I was doing this.
Mm,
So then I would click their profile to
mm,
see who submitted it, and then if they were public, I would scroll through, and it was so
yeah.
eye-opening because I would look at, like, say for example, I got one that's like, I want true friends that I can rely on, and I'd click her profile, and she'd have a ton of pics with friends, smiling pics, going out with pics. I was like, man, surface level
Crazy.
versus reality. Or I'd see a guy who said
Mm.
he wanted direction in life, and then I would click his profile and he was up on stage giving a speech. He was the VP sales somewhere. I was like, man, surface
Oh
versus
wow.
reality. So interesting. Not to say that people are being
That's very
disingenuous,
scary.
but just that you could look at someone who's attractive, who's confident, who's successful on the surface, but they themselves are still pursuing things, which makes you think and pause for a second. Well, then maybe instead of looking at those people and seeing what they have and what I don't have, maybe we could just meet in the middle and say that they might be more attractive looking, more this looking, but that's the surface. We're all looking for these
Hmm.
things. Maybe I should stop borrowing these narratives that are supported through social media. So I did that just to help people like
Mm.
question the reality that is
Wow.
presented to them, of course. I am just at war with the stories that were kind of told on social media. I think they're all helpful. I think it's great when someone sits down and does a dating story TikTok. My fear is that a lot of the time is we consume these stories from other people and we adopt them as their own. Namely, if a girl goes out with a guy on a date and he ghosts her and she's like, this is the fifth time, all men are dishonest. Or a guy does a story,
Yeah.
all women
Yeah.
are crazy. We start to adopt these
Hmm.
narratives as our own that we haven't proven in our
True.
life. And it just makes me sad when I see people adopt other people's standards, other people's boundaries, stories as their own, because it gets in
Hmm.
a way of like my version of manifesting, which is literally just the story you tell yourself versus what you want in the world. And if you're telling yourself that all men are this, all women are this, everyone is doing better than you, but then you expect to go out and experience a reality that's the opposite of that, I just don't see how that's going to work. We have to align those
It's
two
tough.
stories, namely that there are people who are great, that there is opportunity for you to succeed, and then you go and do it. But if we're telling ourselves a story that's the opposite of that, I don't see how we're going to make it happen. So between the social experiment with the question and just questioning people's stories, I think
Hmm.
that's like my heartfelt way to encourage people to be inspired by other people, be inspired by their example, listen to their
Yeah.
story, adopt something that they said that was valuable, but always come back to the fact that, you know, your truth is your truth based on what you've experienced and proven in your life. And until you've done that, just be wary of what you hear, stay curious, stay inspired, but hold
Yeah.
out for that life experience of your own.
I agree, man. That's the crazy thing. You see these things, and it's like, man, that's not a full reality because somebody, and it's almost like when they like, I hate women, all men are bad, like whatever it is. But it's like, but you're thinking that because you want that. But if you create this narrative, we live as humans in ways to make our words right. It's kind of unfortunate and fortunate, right? And so if you have this verbiage and language that goes down the bad, you'll do things to be able to say, yep, see, look, I told you. And
Yeah.
so that just becomes a funky way of existing. It's not fun. And it almost makes you circle back and go, I can get the reason that irks you in the way it does because of mindset and mindfulness being a thing for you. So like if somebody interested, maybe it's a question that's a definitive yes. If somebody's in that place, does the work you do in terms of like the music and mindfulness, the journal and mindfulness, is that a practice that people could implement that could help clear that out?
Absolutely. I mean, I think any form of mindfulness, and of course, there's many. There's yoga, there's meditation, there's journaling, there's sound bath, there's silent walks. There's all these different things you can do. Anything to get
Yeah.
your head in an honest headspace. That's honest for you, not
Mm.
honest in the sense of what you think you should be feeling, but how you're actually feeling. And I think from that headspace, then you can
Yeah.
start to make these decisions about closure, about clarity, about what you want, about what someone else wants, and to realize that there is like the soundbite that I always repeat to people is there's no right way to live your life, but there is a wrong way, and the wrong way is to think that there's a right way.
Mm.
That to our whole conversation, I used to think that there was a right way, and it's so limiting. But I think we could all prove,
Yeah.
not only in 2022, 2023, that you can literally make a living from anything. That's one thing. But
True.
two, there
Mm.
is no right way to be single. There is no right way to be married, divorced, a parent, so on and so forth. I really do
Yeah.
believe that, and I have proven it so often with people. Like I give this funny example. I can talk to a woman follower of mine, and she can look me in the eye and said, if my man doesn't post me as his Woman Crush Wednesday, that is very important to me. I need him to do that. That is a sign of validation in my
Right.
relationship, and she could genuinely mean it and come from a place of sincerity. I could talk to another woman who
Hmm.
says that is insane. I would never need that, and they're both right. But if we were only to look
Yeah.
at her example and you're a young, impressionable woman or man, you might say, oh, well, I need to do that. But I think the greatest freedom comes from realizing that that's not true. And then we have to go through experiences and introspection and mindfulness to figure out what's true for ourselves. But the only way you're going to
Yeah.
get there is if you pause before you react and adopt other people's assumptions, timelines, goals, whatever it may be. And
All
that's
of it.
mindfulness.
It is. I agree, man. I heavily agree. There's just so many things. Like I tell people in the world of like the work that I do is you first have to set your own scale and then measure to that. Because if you borrow the world scale, it's always changing. You don't even know why it exists as it does. So you're going to be wanting something because this girl said all men should do and be this. And you go into the world and then the guy you're with doesn't do that. And you go, well, I think the world says you have to and you're not doing it. Well, why aren't you doing it? Do you not love me? If you don't love, it's this crazy spin up. And it's like, why did you, if you never watch the video, that's problem never occurs. Like it didn't have to
Yeah,
happen in that way.
it's so true.
Where should
It's so
someone
true.
start though? Like, yeah, like, but you have all these things that you do and you've had your own journey. Where would you recommend someone who's sitting there going, this is all like crazy relevant. It's resonating like crazy. Where should I start? Should I get a journal? Should I just listen to your audios? Like what would be if someone was to come to you and you could, I know there's other ways they could do it, but if you're going to be like, hey, come to me, I'm Case, I got you covered. Here's where you begin.
Yeah. I mean, I would say listen to the podcast. I mean, obviously, I drink my own Kool-Aid there, but my whole thing is just like
Mhm.
to break down the cliches we've heard and actually prove it with practicality. And I try to be relatable, and I think there's something about being relatable that maybe you've heard someone say something 20 times, but you hear me say it for the 21st time, and that breaks through for you. Great. I really do think journaling is key, and then followed by therapy. But journaling, there's no friction to it. It's a low lift. You could start easing your way into it. There's no awkwardness. There's no judgment. It's just you, and maybe that's what you need to start to break into these things. And then from there, I mean, I think therapy is the most helpful thing in the world because the reality is we're all in life and we're all out there trying to find answers, right? I don't think anyone would disagree that one
Mhm.
of the purposes of life is to go out and find answers. But we forget that the key to finding answers is to ask ourselves the right questions. And when we're living in the gray,
True.
when we're being reaction robots, we forget to ask ourselves questions. And sometimes we just suck at asking ourselves the right questions. And I think a journal, myself, a therapist, can see through some of that for you and say, hey, have you considered asking
Yeah.
yourself this? And maybe a simple question is what you need to be like, whoa, I didn't even think that was a thing. I had no idea that was possible. Maybe that's all you
Yeah.
need. So between those three things,
I
maybe
get it,
that'll
man.
help people.
I think there's also something to be said about people not, not just say it, not liking the answers they get.
Yeah.
I want to say it in
Yeah.
better words, but it's that simple. Like this, I think sometimes people will choose not to ask the question because the answer is something they don't want to hear. Like, should I stop hanging out and getting drunk with my friends each weekend? Like maybe yeah, and maybe maybe it means you have to cut your friends off and you have to stop
Yeah.
drinking and then like maybe
Yeah.
maybe it'll save you some money in the bank account. But you know the answer, but you don't want to hear the answer, so you don't ask the question. You distract yourself. And
Yeah.
I think something within there is the moment of pause and going, yeah, because I did the same thing, dude. 2016, I woke up. I was like, I don't like this guy, man. I don't like who I am. The trajectory I'm going on is not going to end in a place I want to go in the future. So I was like, why are you doing this? Why'd your marriage fall apart? Why aren't you a present father? Why aren't you in the shape you should be? Why's your business not doing well? I hated the answers, man. Like they broke my soul, but it allowed me to finally do the work that made me feel incredibly confident and comfortable and prideful as a man now. But it would have never happened if I didn't ask those questions.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I encourage people, I think there's even a quote about it. It's like, what's worse, like the pain of whatever or the pain of regret? Like, I think sometimes when
Mm.
faced with an answer we don't want to see, we have to ask ourselves an even like more hurtful question. Like one of the questions I encourage a lot of people to ask is like, what don't you want to regret in life? As a way to get them to realize the small actions that would be painful to stop or start, but realize that that pales in comparison of looking back 20 years from now and realizing that you can't change anything. Like I'm big on like regret being a motivating factor, not to encourage
Mhm.
people to operate from a place of fear, but to be
Yeah,
empowered by the
yeah,
fact that you can't change regret because regret's one of those things that's permanent. But right now you
Mhm.
can do the thing that sucks. You could stop going out with the friends and getting wasted every weekend, and in a sense you might feel like you're starting over and you're a loser, but that's much more that's an easier pill to swallow than to look back and realize that you have some massive regrets. So sometimes maybe it's a
Yeah.
reframing, but yeah, it's ultimately just getting through that first question and being willing to look yourself in the mirror when you answer it.
Yeah, I know. I agree, man. It's funny as you get older, you get more and more like able to do it. You start to carve out the friends that don't fit. You start finding that there's other people in the same journey, experiencing the same thing. You can actually talk, and some people will accept you and feel and see you. I think there's something to it, but I also know that there is a level of, like you said, you're 34. My kids, when they if I pass, not if, when I pass, they will have access to my trust, right? And the age at which they will have the ability to control it themselves is 35. And the person we talked to, he said 35 is that window where You know, in your early 20s, you got through some things, but like you had the heartbreaks. You tried the thing, you failed at the thing. Early 30s too. You're still kind of running around like trying to slowly let go of the 20s, we'll call it. He's like, but by 35, you've seen some stuff. Like there's no way you're avoiding some stuff, you know? And he says that's the window of time when like you're seasoned. And that's when the kids actually get access. So like, you're all right. You're at that 34, 35 age where you start doing life. And I think we kind of have to go through the stuff prior to be better parents, better leaders, and better people. Because it's always that statement. It's like painting on a wall and it says, smooth seas never made skilled sailors. And so I want to be a skilled sailor because of the rough seas, not because I intentionally did crazy stuff, but I just took a look and said, how did I manage that wave? Did I do well? Did I not? How can I make sure I'm prepared for the next one that comes looking like it?
Yeah, I love that. That's a great quote. Yeah, I mean, these are topics that I love you're bringing up because these are like my passion points. Like for me, that's the power of contrast in life, the power of opposites. Like, how do you know what you deserve in a partner? Unfortunately, if you haven't experienced what you don't deserve, like, how do you know what it is to be a great, amazing, compassionate parent if you haven't at times not been or experienced a parent who wasn't? Like, this is the reality of life. And it's, I don't ever want it to sound pandering, but like, the contrast in life is what makes the things that you want and deserve and are capable of so worthwhile, because you can compare it to lack, you can compare it to something that was temporary, and then you can work for that thing that is compassionate, that's permanent, that's worthwhile. But it's only that way because of the opposite of it. If we didn't have the opposite of it, we would have no barometer for what is on the the compassionate side. So I try to turn to that in moments where I'm like, this is horrible, I can't believe I have to do this or did that. It's like there can be a lesson there. There can be a stormy sea type analogy to be made there that makes what comes after that much more rewarding.
I agree, man. You have to taste sour for sweet to be super sweet. So it's it's a journey. Dude, I like it, man. That's our shift number 2, we'll call it. That's the one. Because that's life, man. I think we can all look at it and go, that sucked. Yeah, it did. But man, make something better because you can appreciate it more. Like for me, growing up in foster care, I appreciate every moment of my life because I know what it could have been. And so it makes life beautiful because I just see it in a beautiful way on purpose. Man, I've enjoyed talking to you, dude. Where can I send people to go interact with you? There's a lot of things you do, from the podcast to the journals to the music to you name it. Where can I send someone to kind of go down the rabbit hole of hanging out with you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is a really great chat. I feel like we've got a lot in common. I think just Instagram, case.kenny. I've got everything linked there. The podcast is called New Mindset Who Dis. And I won't shut up about it. So if you follow me, you'll definitely you'll get the brief, and people will figure it out. Cool. But I appreciate that.
I like it, man. All right, final question. And I like that you talk. When you say, like, I'm gonna be quick with this. Like, I want you to be expanded, because when you are passionate about something, either you're crazy or you're right. And most of the time, people of high integrity, they're right. That's why they're so crazy about it. So I appreciate you telling me, like, hey, I talk about it all the time, as you should. Final question. Let's just dive right into it. What promise did God make to the world when He created you?
I think. I honestly, it sounds cliche, but here we are. I think that my empathy is always well served, that I was designed with that in mind. And no matter where it leads me, if it leads me to awkward, embarrassing, rejection, whatever it is, like, the promise that's been made to me is that it's worth it, that practicing it is worth it, that tapping into it is worth it. If anything, it's my skill in life. I think the promise I've been giving is that I've been given a skill. It took me a long time of looking, and I think at a certain point I was like, I guess I don't have any, because not a great athlete, not great with numbers, not this, not that on the list of skills. But I realized that the skill I have is that of simplifying emotions and empathy. And I think, that promise is that it's always well served. Sometimes you don't realize it, but now that's the truth that I'm coming around to.
I like it, man. It's a good one. I don't think everybody operates in that manner, because when you can operate from true empathy, people can do crazy stuff to you, and you can still step back and not meet them at that level. And then you don't have to borrow that, take that package, and you can roll on in life. I get that. I intimately understand that one, man. So I appreciate that. Man, hey, seriously, I appreciate your time. I know you got things going on in the world and you're a busy human, but for you to stop and share the time with us, genuinely appreciate it, man. So thank you. Those of you guys who were tuned in and still listening and hanging out, man, thank you for hanging out with us too. You could have been watching cat videos or dinosaur stuff, who knows, but you chose to come chill with us. We appreciate that. Look at my phone. If something we said today resonates with you deeply, I want you to apply it. That's the cool thing about this. You can hear these things and not have to go through the hardship yourself while still getting to the lesson to extract. And if you know someone who's been close to you for a long time and you've been trying to get through to them, sometimes we're too close to get into that heart. sometimes the words of someone like Case can be the key that opens up this whole door to their life. So share the podcast so they can hear it, or just put it out into the whole stream of the internet. The social media machine will put it out there, and you never know who can listen to something that can change your life in an instant because you shared it. So do that. Outside of that, thank you again. As always, make the most of your awe shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Case Kenny signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Awe Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.